Hey guys, Shanoy here. Welcome again to my channel. So today we will be talking a bit about managing your business remotely. I'm a communication strategist, an entrepreneur, a remote work strategist, and also CEO for Infinity Integrated. However we're connected or however you know me, I'm happy that you're here. If you aren't already following, please remember to hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you can see when next we go live. So tonight is slightly different because we will be talking, well, rather, I will be interviewed by Yolande Cumia, and she's a very successful entrepreneur. She's in the hair products industry, organic hair products industry. And tonight she will be talking to me a bit in terms of how to manage a business remotely. Now, several of you would have seen our previous That Remote Life interview sessions. And in those interview sessions, I would have mentioned at some points that I have worked remotely before in excess of 5 years. Probably what I haven't mentioned as explicitly is the fact that I have also been managing a business remotely. And when I say remotely, I mean with time zone difference, with the number of hours in between, with a very different physical location. May not be such a big deal for some organizations that are much larger, but when you're a smaller business that you're still scaling, there are certain challenges that comes with this. Additionally, it's a very different ball game when you are working remotely for someone else and they have a system and structure in place, and when you're working remotely for yourself and therefore need to finalize your own structure and your system. So we will talk a bit about several of those elements. And I should apologize in advance because Kumia will go live via IG. And as a result of this, you will not see her in this, but you will be forward facing with me. And so you will hear the different tips as I respond to the questions. As is the norm, I encourage you to drop your questions in the question box, in the live chat box, and I will endeavor to respond to them as we go along. Now, if you have any friends or loved ones that this topic would be useful for, I would encourage you to tell them to come along, share the link, invite them. We're going to be talking again about managing your business remotely. And I don't want to go into too much details before Kumia gets on, but just talking to someone else recently as well, it isn't just about people who have chosen to manage their business remotely. In one scenario, I've heard of someone who went off on a business trip, and when they went on the business trip, their intention was to just be in the country for a few weeks and then head back to their home country. Then COVID-19 happened. That person was stuck. Their business still needs to go on. They're in a different country. And then there were several challenges, several gaps that needed to be addressed. So, again, I'll be talking quite a bit about some of the things that have worked for me in my line of duty. I've done this for several years, as mentioned prior, often with international organizations, again, communicating across borders and cultures. And these lessons have proven very handy in terms of migrating them to my own business model, which I've always known was going to be one that would be very remote driven. So, again, if you're here, thank you for being here. Invite your friends to come along and get your questions going. As mentioned as well, I'll be interviewed by Yolande Cumia. And so while you may not be able to see her, you'll be able to hear her as we go along, and you will hear me responding to the questions. So just a few more minutes to go. Again, if you're not already doing so, just hit that subscribe button, turn your notifications on. And in a greater sense, you can also connect with me at www.shanoycoombs.com. That's www.shanoycoombs.com. Okay. All right. And so while you wait around as well, I would encourage you, if you've missed or that remote life series, it was chock full of information with almost all categories you want to think of. So I would encourage you to just scroll around a bit as well to look at some of those interviews that we did previously There are things that you may want to learn about in terms of starting off with your remote work. It's something you may have never done before, but we have done interviews around with tips from other people who have done it before you. We did interviews as well with people in terms of homeschooling your children while working remotely. We spoke to people about working from home with a family remotely. We had an e-commerce conversation on how you can start off your business and start earning remotely. And then we wrapped up in terms of effective culture and communications. And how is it that you can incorporate this in your business processes if you're an employer or an executive, and also in your daily life if you're a member of staff. So while I wait on Kumia, I kind of had a little structure that I wrote around with. I mean, she may have her questions and that sort of stuff, but I call them about the 4 or 5 S's. It depends on where we get with this. But in managing your business remotely, I've highlighted some key areas, and I think a main one would be strategy, the second one, system, a third one, success indicators, a fourth, your support, and fifth, your schedule. We will dive a bit more into those, but for now, I just want you to bear those in mind, even as you drop your questions in the chat box. So if at any point I may have overlooked, or you feel it is that I need to expound more on any of those areas, I would encourage you to check it out. So again, the areas I want to cover in this session in terms of managing your business remotely will focus on strategy, your system, your success indicators, your support systems, and your schedule. Once again, Shanoy Coombs, welcome to my channel. If you're not already following, hit that subscribe button and turn your notifications on to see when next we go live. So I'm just going to be connecting with Kumia's in short order, and we'll just get
Mother's Day. Is anybody on here a mother?
And
I'm so excited
it's
that
also
today,
Mother's Day as well.
in this time when we're experiencing COVID-19, we're still able to celebrate Mother's Day. We're still able to celebrate like real bosses. I mean, come on and just be like, listen, despite what's happening with COVID-19, we are still bosses. We're still doing excellent, and we're just going to be 100% boss out. Thank you very much, Anne. Thank you very much. And you know, my hair is obviously, I use my own products. If you follow me.
So as mentioned prior, I will be interviewed by Kumias. She's also an entrepreneur in the hair products industry, very successfully so. I mean, now especially in these times, her business is still up and running, and she would have utilized several processes and systems in her business as well. But tonight we'll be talking specifically in terms of my skill sets, my expertise, and lessons that I've learned working remotely and how I've applied them in terms of my very own remote driven business.
Also a blog. I'm going to put my ear.
Okay, and so she has her introduction going, so I'll just keep you posted with that so you can hear as that goes along.
Right, she's an entrepreneur, she's a blogger, she is a development communication specialist, and I'm sure there's going to be something that you can grab from tonight's live. Before I bring her on, I want to say one of the things that inspires me a lot about Shanoy, she probably doesn't even know this, but Shanoy is such a go-getter. You know those people who they don't stop, they don't fail, they don't stop because they might be failing or something. She's a go-getter. I remember about 6 years ago or 7 years ago, she did an interview with me about my business. Long time. So you know that this is not no hurry come see, just come see and stuff like that. She's been really going at it, and she travels a lot. I'm inspired about people who travel a lot. I'm going to go and bring her on now, though. So, because right now it's not early her time. She's actually in the UK.
Midnight.
And I'm going to bring her on because I don't want to keep her up Everybody must be seeing, or I don't know. Hi, girl.
Hi, Camille.
Hi.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, I'm like I was saying earlier. I'm so excited that you decided that you would actually come on and share your expertise as a development communication specialist. I was also saying how inspired I am by you, the mere fact that you are such a boss at everything that you do. You're such a boss at everything that you do, and you've been doing it. I met you 7 years ago.
Several years ago.
Consistently, you've still been doing it. So I introduced you a bit, but I want you to go ahead and tell everybody who is on here or who will come on later on, if they're not on here now, who you are, what inspired you in the field that you're in currently, and go straight into your presentation because I can't wait.
All right, sounds good for me. So as I was mentioning before, or I heard you say some of the things, I'm Shanoy Coombs. I'm a development communication specialist. I'm also an entrepreneur. I operate a business, Infinity Integrated Limited, and it's a full-scale communication services business. I have often worked primarily with persons in the international organization sector and with lots of development communications process. I'm a mommy blogger with Jamaican mommies, and I also manage my daughter's business. So quite a few things going on there. Another thing that is worth noting in terms of perspective is that I'm currently in the UK doing some further qualifications. So, in some sense, you can imagine you moved over to a new country, you foresaw that you'd have certain flexibilities to move about as you needed to.
Did you turn off the TV?
But it did not happen. And so, what you have found
Shanoy,
is that,
hold on a second.
Okay.
One quick second. Just a bit of housekeeping, guys. On my end, Shanoy is pausing a bit when she speaks. So I'm just gonna ask you guys whether or not it's also happening on your end. Does those hearts mean yes?
You look fine I saw you jump on. End. I'm not sure what's happening.
Are you close to your modem, or I don't know what it clearly? You guys would still have a modem. No, you're not. Okay, go ahead, Shanoy. Go ahead.
Great. Yes, so as I was mentioning is that what many people may not know and what's important for context is that I'm in the UK. My business is based in Jamaica, but so you foresaw that when you move to one particular country, you'd have a certain flexibility to move around as you see fit. Then when COVID-19 happens, borders are closed, you still have a business to manage. You're in a completely different country. And so that itself brings with it several different sort of dynamics. So in a bubble, that's a sort of context to it. So for me, though, is that the good thing about this is that I've been working remotely in excess of 5 years, if I'm to put it that way. Because with several of the international organizations I've worked with, and as you would have said, you've seen me traveling a lot, often for work. And so when I travel, I would always have to be managing work processes and workflows irrespective of wherever I was. So I remember, for example, I'm in South Africa. It was a 7-hour time zone difference. I was planning an event in Jamaica. I had to be scheduling around that to ensure that I was able to connect with people where they were. Because if it's one thing, everyone talks about the glamour of remote work and that sort of stuff and managing your business processes from wherever. But a key consideration is the time zone difference, and you can experience significant burnout if you do not know how to manage that. So what I will do, I know you have questions coming along, Kumias, but what I have done is that I have written down 5 main things. I call them my 5 main S's of managing your business remotely. And
I love it.
So it's my 5 main S's. I like to do this, as a communicator. It's important. I kind of try to give people ways to remember the key points that I'm going into. And the first one I wanted to talk about is your strategy. So strategy is my first S. So as a communications practitioner, what had happened is that fortunately for me, my business was structured in such a way that some aspects I was able to do from wherever. So if a client reaches out to me, for example, and says, Shanoy, I want to voice this ad, Whether it is that I'm the one voicing it or I'm outsourcing it or I'm giving it to someone else, that is something I can manage from wherever. A client may also say they want something to be edited. They may want a communication strategy generated. They want some impact stories written. They want to have some press releases stuff. They want to have an interview guideline. Those are all things I can do irrespective of where I am. However, when you start to get into business mode, you have to recognize you cannot do everything. And that is where your strategy comes in. Because the more you want your business to grow and elevate to a certain level, it means that you need to be freeing up more of your time as the CEO of your business, as the entrepreneur, as the executive, to ensure that you can focus more on strategy to take you to the next level. And then it therefore means you will have to give some of your other tasks to other people. Now, one thing I wanted to say as well is that in terms of strategy, it's one thing if you're a big company and you're well known and you probably have the capacity and the resources and the budget to have a full staff complement to take care of stuff. But I'm talking a bit here to my small businesses, my entrepreneurs. You just start out, you're working from your kitchen table, you're working from your couch, that sort of stuff. And if you're in that position, one of the greatest challenges can be that you are likely to suffer from burnout. Not only because you think you can do everything, but because you have to do everything. You don't have the budget yet, you don't have the capacity yet, and so you feel that you have to do everything. So it's one thing though when you have a strategy, and you're there and you can manage the business, but imagine when you are not there. So for me, I mean, as I said, the communication arm of the business was easy to manage, but I also manage my daughter's business, and she does a hygiene and sanitation kits. So she does Kai Health kits. And that, we launched that from August of last year, and then COVID-19 happened, and then there's this big boom, and everybody wants sanitizers. And in our kits, the key thing was hand soap, hand sanitizers, lotion, etc. And so even just dealing with those shifts, strategy was key. In terms of your strategy, though, when you're thinking of working remotely, you have to be thinking about things such as your communication systems. You have to be thinking about your sales, and you have to be thinking about your marketing. I see that my virtual assistant is here, and I'm going to give a plug right here that a key part of your strategy is who is on your team and who is able to represent your business in a professional manner when you are not. So one of the challenges that came with me being in a very different country, it meant I needed at least one person I could rely on to be dealing with certain things that required a physical presence. So make no mistake about it, though my assistant is a virtual assistant, she handles phone calls within the local context. She coordinates several things as well. And if it is at any point that any person is required in a physical space, it's almost like she functions. I said to her, before I left and I had to work on that system, I said, it's almost like a branch we're creating, and you're the hub.
Wow.
You're the hub. And these are all the branches that we're going to be looking at. And she will probably tell you that one of the things we worked on was to create a list with all of my key stakeholders. So I said to her, bearer, who can do the press release, who would be the one who needs to do a media appearance, who is creating my products, right? And so it's now a much easier task if it is that she used to call on anyone. She knows that she can just pull up the list and say, okay, this needs to be ordered, this needs to be delivered, and she kind of knows who is taking up all of that. So I would say your strategy is super important. And in doing your strategy, you have to think your communication. And if it is that in terms of communication, you're not able to physically be there. For me as well, being in the UK, I'm accessible, but someone who's calling me wouldn't want to be calling from Jamaica with a UK number. So it goes without saying, for your strategy and your communication, you'd have to have the tools. So my virtual assistant is equipped with a dedicated company handset, and it serves as the first responder for the business. So I would say for anybody, small entrepreneurs, a virtual assistant is a great investment at this particular point in time, an important part of your strategy. And in your strategy as well, the things that you want to be thinking about. What are your sales target? How much money do you need to make and by when? Especially now, if you don't have a job, or if you have been trying to earn your own keep for a long while. So in that way, you have to set your targets. And it becomes even more important now when you don't have physical presence to your advantage. What it therefore means is that you can't go outside and do promotions and to show people your business anymore, but you can use your online platforms to do that. So now is the time, reach out to your customer base to let them know that you're still here, because listen, people buy from who they know and trust. So you want them to know you're still operating. Even if you're not selling nothing right now, you want them to know you are still available, so that when they actually start spending again, they say, Kumi has had reached out, or Kumi was doing this live session to add some value to my life as well.
Absolutely.
And so in that way, your online platforms as well, your social presence, as Philly is pointing out, is important at this phase as a part of your strategy. So I hope I did strategy justice. If there's anything you want to ask, you can drop it here. But I'm going to move on to my second S, which is your system.
You mean your third S?
Well,
your second one, I think, was sales target.
Not really. So strategy. Strategy had both communications. So I was doing strategy, and under your strategy, I was saying, you need to focus on the communication aspect of your strategy, the sales aspect of your strategy, the marketing aspect of your strategy. For the system now, I kind of touched on this a bit, and this is who does what. And not just who in terms of the person, but what facilities does what. So if you have a client base that you have to make contact with a lot via email, you may want to have your email schedule so you know that you have your MailChimp. And I would say automation is key when you're managing a business remotely. Because if there is whoever designed all of these platforms, the one thing I'll thank them for is the ability to schedule things, to automate things, and to take off some of that burden in terms of your life. So if you're sending email, have your MailChimp platform set up. You can schedule your emails. You can get that out of your way.
And I just have to interject right here that for some reason, I literally just started fooling around with MailChimp since I started doing my challenges and my mentorship program. And let me tell you, it is so easy to use. Yes. I thought it was difficult, especially when you download the app. It's so easy.
And if it makes it easier as well, do a standard template and reuse the template and just edit it. It makes your life so much easier. And in terms of who does what, again, as I say, if you have a graphic to be done, are you the best person who can do it? Is it that you can pay someone a small amount of money? Lots of people talk about Canva. It's a free platform. It's easy to drag and drop if you're not a professional designer. So in terms of your system and managing your business remotely, you also need to be thinking, fine, I normally do all of these things, but if I'm not available for whatever reason, God forbid you get sick, God forbid you're not able to access your laptop, God forbid anything at all can happen, who in your business would be able to cover that ground and do what in your absence? So in terms of that system, you want to be looking at that. For payment as well, you need to be looking at that. If you had a physical business where people could walk up and come and pay you money, and now you don't have that advantage, how are you accepting payments? Is it a case that you're going to have to set up an e-commerce platform? Is it a case that if you're a small business, you may have to start small and you're using your bank account and people are making a deposit to the bank account and sending proof of payment, and then you dispatch the product and you get a bearer to deliver, etc. So it's about being very creative and knowing that you don't have the value of face-to-face and physical presence that you once had before. So
can I add something to that, Shanoy?
Sure, go ahead.
I just wanted to also say that right especially in contemporary times, the ease with which the customer is able to interact with you is what we're all looking for.
Yes.
So your sales funnel has to be effective and efficient. I always tell persons, especially now, both in mentorship and in my MMMC challenge, if you don't have a funnel, when somebody comes onto your page, the number one thing you're using to market, and they cannot go from there to somewhere to get your service or your product, it's almost as though you're giving them the opportunity to go and find it somewhere else.
Exactly.
Someone else who has this set up very easily. So now talking about this, Shanoy, I see how it makes perfect sense.
It does, it does. And if it's one thing I will say as well, sometimes we give ourselves lots of work as well. So in terms of your systems, sometimes it's best to just not stretch yourself too thin. And an important part of this is that once you know your audience, you'll know where they are. So you don't have to be trying to be, all right, I need to be Facebook, I need to be Instagram, I need to be Twitter, I need to be LinkedIn, I need to be everywhere. The truth is, the more you know your audience, you know where they are. And you know that that's where you need to be spending most of your time. For me personally, anybody I'm doing business with, the first place I look is on social media. If I'm buying a dress right now, I'm going to go to that store's page and I'm going to see what information is there. If someone is hosting an event, I'm going on their social media page because I expect to find certain basic information. And if I don't see it there, it turns me off almost automatically from the process. So, in thinking about your system as well, it is about what makes your business flow in the easiest possible way for you. I mean, as I say, you're an entrepreneur, you're starting small, you don't have the staff complement. Persons like Kumia who are making products and they're probably actively involved in the product making, but they still have to deal with marketing and communications and promotions, etc. You want to ensure that your system is structured in such a way that you're taking off as much load off yourself.
Right.
System as well as Kumia, not to cut you, but I wanted to add that for system, you also have to think about, as I said, don't fall prey to burnout. It may seem like you have to do everything and you don't have money to do anything, but I'm telling you guys, this is the importance of outsourcing at times. Because if you ever want your business to move from point A to point B and you're the strategic force in your business, but you're spending all of your time doing admin tasks, you're not going to move. So work out an arrangement with your virtual assistant, work out an arrangement with your graphic designer. What I started off doing a lot when I just started off in business was bartering of services. I'm great at communication services. I'm great at, so I'd have a client who probably says, I want to get on a media interview. And I say, okay, what's your budget? Their budget is very low, but they offer graphic design services. Okay, I can get you on a primetime interview. Can you do this graphic for me? When I've hosted
Shanoy, so what will we be bartering now?
Well,
you and I.
With bartering. Bartering can be several things. No, and it's not even just about products, it's about services, because you are an entrepreneur, but as an entrepreneur who has gained certain successes, there are certain skill sets. Even as I sit in here with my daughter in the product space, there are lessons I can learn from you in the product space. Likewise, there are communication lessons you can learn from me.
Absolutely.
It can also be bartering access to networks. So if you have a network that is populated with women, for example, and women are my target audiences for my business, or I'm launching a program that is directly targeted to women, I can say, okay, let me collaborate with Kumias to see how this can be mutually beneficial to us. So
I like it.
In talking about your systems, it is never just about the fact that you don't have money. It's about creative ways of seeing how you can add value to other people. I tell people the first places to start is to know that you have something that others want. If you just start out today as an administrator, there are people who don't start yet, and you know two things more than them, right?
Love it.
If you're somebody who has been doing something for 1 year, there are people behind. There are always people who are just starting or don't start it, who wants to have some information from you. The key thing is to find out who those people are, and what they're probably willing to invest in exchange for the knowledge that you have. So I would say that in terms of system. So for anyone else who is just joining, we're going through the ways that you can manage your business remotely. I spoke a bit about your strategy and how defined this has to be when you don't have the benefit of a physical space. And so in your strategy, you look at your communication, your sales, and your marketing and your system as well. I spoke about your system being around who does what. It looks at your automation. It ensures that you're taking off some of the load off yourself. And again, a big plug for virtual assistants everywhere. Invest in them, guys. Invest in a virtual assistant. If you're a small business, a small entrepreneur, invest in a virtual assistant because they can help to take off lots of the administrative load so you can focus on strategy. I give you an example. With my daughter's business, as I said, we're an entire kit. We sell a complete kit with hygiene products, 9 different hygiene products. COVID-19 happening. The market wants sanitizers. Of course, I would be loving to sell the kits as as they are. I'm here in the UK. My business is based in Jamaica. My virtual assistant, I have to say, oh Lord, I have clients calling to me. They want just the sanitizers. I don't have the demand for it, but it forces you to think creatively. And you know what? One of the things that has emerged positively from this situation of managing the process remotely is that I've been forced to build further relationships. So, whereas I probably had just two main suppliers for the products, I now had to look at additional suppliers because here it is that you had a market that is driven by demand and you need to be able to meet that demand. So, in terms of that system, as I'd say, it is about who does what and also the entire tools and automation processes around that that will help you to meet your targets of managing your business remotely. My third S, you look like you wanted to say something to me.
I was just gonna say big up to that virtual assistant because
Yes.
I know that virtual assistant personally, and I remember when that virtual assistant reached out to me and said, "Hey, I have a client who needs X, Y, Z. Can you?" And I said, "Hey, I cannot. Here is another person who can."
Yes.
And that's exactly how it networks and how it flowed. So I just wanted to big her up right there. I just wanted to big her up.
I have to give a shout out to all the entrepreneurs that are not afraid to reference someone else. You know, I have to big you up for that.
Absolutely.
Because you know, you start off and it's about collaboration. Small businesses, we are a huge part of the entire economy. And so we have to support each other. So respect due for that. So I wanted to go on to my third indicator.
Before you go on to your third indicator, because we have a little bit of time, I also want to interject. It's such a big problem that I wish in my lifetime I will be able to encourage as many people as possible to understand that putting your limited beliefs on others, trying to hold people down, not sharing information with people, it does more harm than it does good. If you can self-reflect and realize that, ask yourself the question, why don't I want to share? What do I have to fear if I give another person information? Self-reflect and just try and tear down those barriers and those things inside of you that causes you to try and tear other people down. For them to feel like there's nothing. I had to put that in Shanoy because a lot of small entrepreneurs, they miss out on growth simply because one, they're afraid to ask. People who have the information, they would rather be jealous of that person than ask them, how do I do this? One, or two, they're just having a barrier mentality. Let me not. Since I've been doing these live collaborations, I've had some great people come on and willingly just export all of their knowledge. You are here doing exactly that. So I'm a passionate person. So when you touched on that a while ago, I said, no, I have to put in something right here.
It's perfectly so. There's a little quote that says, you do not lose your own shine by helping others to shine. And I want everyone watching that to think about that. Small businesses, just think of one thing you see the larger business doing, and is collaboration is key. I just want you to remember that. I know you said we have a time crunch, so I'm going to rush to my third, I think, which is success indicators. When you're managing your business remotely, you have to be very aware of what your success indicators are. For me, the success indicators I had when I was physically managing my business, they changed, no doubt, when I had to be managing my business remotely. Certain targets I had, and like I had certain strategies, and I want to be on the ground and in certain locations and that sort of stuff. And because I didn't have the capacity to be paying the persons I wanted to at that point, I kind of had to do a shift. And so my success indicators shifted to say, okay, I will not be able to do these on the ground components. However, I'm going to buckle down on my niche. And so in my communications practice, my niche has been international organizations. I haven't really been advertising as widely because I said, in terms of capacity, I also need to be mindful of what I can manage. And I will say to people sometimes, it is better for you to manage 5 clients excellently than managing 50 sloppily, because people will remember the experience they had with you and you will get your referrals. In my communication practice, I don't advertise because, as I say, I have a very niche market and they refer. So someone will be launching a project in the Caribbean region and they said, oh, this girl, Shanoy, she worked on the European Union project with us. Let us have her work on it for us. And so sometimes you have to just tend to the people that you are tending to. And so even with the retail arm of the business with the sanitation kits, we haven't been advertising as much because one of the things as well had been to tighten up on the back end to ensure that we have enough supplies and stuff. But we have been getting orders from corporate Jamaica. And
I can imagine.
when you're a business, business to business counts. So I had to make a strategic decision that, was I going to go off and order for 250 of the product from one company, or trying to sell 250 of the products to 250 people. And so it is that I've had to strategize in that way. I remember at one point as well, my virtual assistant will tell you that we went through a process where we were just kind of cold calling organizations and that sort of stuff. But from the moment we got the first organization, they referred. We filled an order the other day, and it's another company wrote to say, I want the same product that you sold, so and so.
Excellent.
So, you have to look at your success indicators. And I know at this particular point in time, you're probably thinking that the same amount you used to earn while you were in person, you want to be earning it while you're not there in person. So you have to be flexible with them. I'm not telling you to cut your targets in terms of how much you want to earn, but you have to have a strategy in case you can't do it physically. So I would say, managing your business remotely, again, you focus on your success indicators, and this is very specific to you, very specific to your business, very specific to you as an entrepreneur or an executive. Number 4 in managing your business remotely is support. Now, I'm not just talking about support in terms of your support team. I touched on that already. I touched on how, if you don't have the capacity and you can outsource, or if you have virtual persons, for years, my graphic designer is not on a payroll, it's on an as needed basis. If I want a video produced, I have a network of people who I know can produce it. In the smaller phases as well, when I needed like a press release done, I knew I had X amount of people who I could call on to do the press release for me. But when I mean support, I mean many of those people who are not necessarily involved in the business process, but they're just there to cheer you on. And this is where your friends, your family members, and your loved ones come in. Because let me tell you something, man. Entrepreneurs can sometimes be said to be mad because you go out not knowing what you will expect, you not knowing what you may see or what you may not see. It's a huge risk. And it can be mentally draining. It can take a toll on your health, right? And especially when you're not physically at a place to manage your business, it can be frustrating. I look at the targets that I had set, and I would say, I'm stuck in the UK, stranded of sorts, even if you may, until the country reopens its borders. You look at certain targets that you would have set at the start of the year, and you look at them slipping away, and it's not likely that you're meeting them. It can be very frustrating. It can be very mind bending. So in managing your business remotely, you need to ensure that your system, your support system, it needs to be tight, and it doesn't need to be big. It can be literally one friend who is going to be there for you to say, do you need help with something? And it can be that you're a parent and it's just that you say, okay, just keep my daughter distracted from it so that I can just go through this meeting or something. So I would say your support system. And, even with the support and managing your business, you have to be cognizant that you may not have it. So listen, the number one supporter has to be you. You have to be your biggest cheerleader. You have
Absolutely.
It sounds hard, but you have to pull yourself out of a funk because,
absolutely,
as Kumia mentioned earlier as well, is that sometimes you may ask for support and people may genuinely not offer it to you. At the same time, you may find other people in a line of business who will freely give you information. So you have to elevate yourself to a point where you just think of the best possible outcome and that there will be people who will be willing to support you. There are people who knows the value or knows that they were where you were at some point and they're willing to help to get you to the point that you need to be. So I would say in terms of managing your business reportedly, your support needs to be strong. It really needs to be strong. But importantly, you need to be a strong supporter for yourself because if nobody else believes in you, you need to believe in yourself. And another important thing is that some people, for whatever reason, you would think that by your actions and being a go-getter, that people would look on and they'd admire you. It's not always so. People will look on and say, oh, you're too much and you're too extra and you're trying too hard.
I'm happy you're the one over there.
How can you try too hard to meet your goals?
I am happy you are the one saying that.
Right. How can you be too extra trying your goals? And Kumi, I can tell you, for every level of success you get, you will have people who are telling you, like, some will even go as far as say to stay in your lane. So you have to remember.
Shanoy, don't let me get up and start to clap tonight.
You have to remember. I'm talking the truth, guys. Like, honestly, even more so when you're managing remotely and it may literally be you alone sitting on your floor with your laptop trying to make ends meet and you don't know where it's going to come from. You have to be your biggest supporter. And you have to know that others may not believe in you, but you have to believe in yourself. And I'm going to diverge a bit. Yes, go ahead.
Sometimes they believe in you and they are afraid of what they believe in.
They are afraid.
So it's subconsciously they say, no, remember Joseph now. Remember Joseph now and his brothers.
Yes.
I need not say anymore.
That's true. And because when you think about it as well, is that sometimes people see the greatness in you that you don't see in yourself, right? And you have to remember that. I mean, I said I would go off on a slight tangent because I'm a big believer in vision boards. You guys know this already. I've been talking about it for quite a bit of times. And it's not just about the board, it's about the process that you go through with it. It's about a process of self-belief and, believing that whatever your mind conceives, you can actually achieve. So I would say, especially in these times when you're managing your business, you have to first believe that you're going to make it. You may not make it now. You may not meet a target that you were planning to meet by 6 months, but you're going to try to meet it by the end of the year. And if not, you're going to wheel and come again, and you're going to meet it next year. So I would say your support, as I mentioned, but importantly as a part of your support is you being a huge supporter for yourself, right? And then, and next of my S's is your schedule. Your schedule is super important when working remotely. I touched on it briefly before. I did, in fact, mention that as a part of my formal job, I had to travel a lot for work, and so I would be coordinating communications. I remember in one instance, I had a wedding to attend, and I was coordinating a World Food Day event for the UN in Jamaica, Bahamas, and Belize. And I needed to go to the wedding, and I needed to coordinate this event. So the midway was that while I was there for the weekend for the wedding preparations and stuff, I had to have a tight schedule. I had to be ensuring that when meetings were to be had, I was meeting them and I was also meeting the objectives of being in the space with the wedding and that sort of thing. But outside of that, schedules are important for your mental health and your preservation because listen, guys. One of the investments I did in myself was to do a time management course because It is so easy when you're passionate about something, it is so easy for you to literally become a slave to it. You spend every waking hour of the day on it, and that's not healthy. You
Mm-hmm.
have to take breaks. And I remember once I joined the gym to force myself to stop working because I said, okay, I need to
Wow.
break at this time to go to the gym. And so schedules are important because they help to boost your productivity. And even with schedules, one of the things I say to people, if you're working remotely as well, is to schedule in breaks. So I do a little timer thing now, and I say, all right, I'm going to do 2 hours. I literally put my phone on 2 hours timer, and I work for 2 hours before I take a break. When it goes on 2 hours, I say, okay, let me take a 5 to 10 minute break, and then I go again. A part of my
Love
schedule that
it.
I'm working on a lot, I won't say that I've fully worked in exercises, but I do make some attempt. Now here in the UK, we're allowed to go out once per day. I think it's shifted, but I make
Oh,
use of those one per day and I go for a walk. It doesn't have to be very far. It's just literally to ensure that my body isn't freezing up, because irrespective of what's happening, you need to ensure that you're taking care of your mind, your body, and your soul. So schedule as well, especially if you have families, guys, you cannot afford to lose your families because you're chasing work.
no.
It's
It's
easy
very important.
because, as I said, you're passionate about this. It's the only thing you want to do in the world. And so you're going to constantly be doing it. But you have to ensure that you're scheduling time with your kids, your spouse, and whoever. And in
And
terms
yourself.
and yourself. And in terms of schedule as well, I would say use up the tools. One of the biggest blessings for me has been the fact that platforms like Google Mail, you can schedule your email. And it was the best, it was like the best thing since sliced bread when I discovered that. Because, as I said, I would be in a country with a 7 hour difference, time zone difference, and I needed to send some emails. And I would be up in my time zone at whatever time, but I would be scheduling them so they hit someone's inbox at 8 a.m., 8:30 a.m. even. And so they said, on time. And so it worked out. I have a daughter as well as a part of this schedule. It hasn't always been easy, but in my
Mhm.
calendar now, and guys, use up the calendars on your phone. It will
Use
not
them up.
always be easy, but the more you practice scheduling and the more you actually stick to your schedule, it becomes easy, right? It takes a while to change the habit, but the more you do it, the more it will just become a part of your routine.
Yeah.
In my calendar now, every single day, like I calculated, Jamaica is 6 hours behind, and I have a time zone thing, and I say 2 p.m. every day. This is what I call. And so it is important to use those tools to your advantage because guess what? You see, when you're done scheduling, that's one
Yeah.
less task for you to do. Another
Yeah.
thing you can schedule are your social media posts. With tools like those out there, it doesn't make sense to be frustrating yourself, getting up every day saying, oh Lord, I never put no post on my page today. Schedule it. Schedule it. As I said, if
Yes.
you're not familiar with it, it's again, Felisa probably say that I'm literally calling her out on this chat, but she does know and she has been a huge source of influence in my business and getting me the kind of support I wanted because even things like she said, oh Shanoy, I can schedule your social media posts for you. You know, I'll probably do some of the designs they pass on to her and then she'll schedule them and that sort of stuff. So that is super,
And,
super.
and that is particularly important too
Mhm.
because customers, your audience, they respond to your level of consistency.
Yes.
If there's nothing more I'm turned off by people who start something
Mhm.
and then you go on the page to get what they started, but you can't find
You
anything
can't
about
find
it.
it.
It doesn't make sense. You have to be serious about it and be consistent.
Yes. So I see several people here saying yes, they schedule and that sort of stuff. But as I mentioned, it's not just about your work. Ensure that you're scheduling some time for your own mental space. And I mean,
Mhm.
I want to just make a little point on that. Now with COVID-19, everybody's pushing, kind of just pushing to say, oh, now is the time to write your book. Now is the time to do this. Yes, it may be the time. It may be the time for you. But let me tell you something, especially with books, it's like a baby. I would say writing a book is like giving birth to a baby. It's not going to happen until you're ready, right?
Mhm.
The baby not going to come 4 months when it really supposed to come 6 months. So I would say you have to be in
Mhm.
tune with yourself as well. sure, motivate yourself, be your cheerleader and stuff, but also be very mindful of over pushing your limits. So
Yes.
if it is that there's one particular thing you want to focus on during this particular time of managing your business remotely, focus on it. Don't try to be overexerting yourself to be doing too many things at once, right? And that is what I would say in terms of schedule as well, to just ensure that you're not overexerting. And as I would have said before, again, it is better to do 5 things excellently than to be doing 50 and none of them is being done. So sometimes it's about writing down. A little activity that I like to do is to just, what is the thing that you can't get out of your mind? Like if you were to think of all the different ideas you have, all the different possibilities.
I love that.
Which one can you not get out of your mind? And your body and your mind teaches you stuff, because you'll be in your bed and this thing just comes to you and you say, oh yes, I need to, and you jot down stuff. And so if that is happening a lot and it's recurring in your life, it may be that that's the thing that you need to pursue first.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's the thing you may need to make a priority. And so in that respect, I would say your scheduling is important, but also that one thing, yes, that one thing, and also eat that frog, that principle of focusing on that thing, which is really, really important in your life.
Yeah.
So I have gone through my five essays. The first being strategy, when you're managing your business remotely. And for your strategy, you want to include, as I said again, communication, your sales, your marketing. For your systems, you want to focus a lot on who does what, and you want to also focus on your automated systems as well. How is your payment process? How is your email sent? Your success indicators, which you have to make very specific to you, and you may actually need to modify them based on how much of your work requires a physical presence. Your support, which is not just your business support elements, but also your family members, your friends, and of course, you supporting yourself. And importantly, your schedule, which will guide not just your business processes, but will guide your life, tend to your mind, body, and soul, and ensure that you actually have enough time for yourself. There's one thing I really won't want to go into too much, because I see that we're almost at an hour already, interestingly.
And I want to take some questions, but definitely go ahead with that.
The one thing, and I'm going to do a live on this probably, so people can pop on at some other time. But one main thing, because I'm a communications practitioner.
One second, Felicia, can you go right ahead and just type in Shanoy's handle? So persons can go right ahead and follow her. Infinity.
Yes, at Infinity. Yes. So
just type that in the window for me, please.
As a communication strategist, one of the key things about managing a business remotely, of course, is being able to communicate effectively, especially now with remote platforms. I mean, you don't have the benefit of face-to-face communication, so you have to be very crisp and clear and free of errors. I won't go into my details about that, but just wanted to plug that there, that now more than ever, you can turn off people if your email is filled with grammatical errors, or if you're not taking attention to details, or just generally just be mindful of who you're talking to. The way you talk to your friends on WhatsApp, you're definitely not going to be moving that over into a business email space. I see it a lot with younger people I work with. They have become so used to using shorthand language, WhatsApp language, etc., and they move that over into the formal space. So you want to be very mindful of that. But I will stop right there, and we will take some questions. So I tried as best to summarize the 5 essays to managing your business remotely for those who just joined. But of course, feel free to ask me anything, and I'll happily assist.
All right. So there's a question that came in from Nikisha, Bare Basic, and she said, "How do I stay motivated?"
Oh, Lordy. In terms of staying motivated, right? So I did a full series on being productive in a pandemic, right? And there are many different strategies that I like to utilize. One of them is that I think about the thing that I like doing the most, and I think about the thing that I like doing the least. Now, We're naturally wired to probably focus on the thing that we like to do the most, but strategically, we should try to do the thing that we like the least. So even if it is that we chip at it away one block at a time to ensure that we're being productive. Now, I don't know if I had mentioned as a part of this discussion that in addition to managing my business, I'm also undertaking studies here in the UK. So, in that respect, what has been happening is that it has been a double dose of trying to be motivated and to be productive. But I did, in fact, say that I am a vision board kind of girl, and having my goals in front of me helps. I know the reason why I came here to begin with. I know the qualifications that I wanted to get. I know what my end goals are. And so you may not have a full vision board, but think about it that why are you doing this? It may just be that you're doing it because you need to get paid to do it, right?
Right.
You're probably doing it because you say, okay, I don't want to do this job forever. I want to elevate my business to a certain level, or I want to get to do this particular task. And so, in that respect, you can use that to motivate yourself. Another little tip that I do as well is to set motivation meters. I use my timers as well, and I say, okay, yeah, I want to go on social media and idle or whatever, but I set my 2 minute timer, and I said not 2 minutes, 2 hours, and I say I'm going to be productive for 2 hours, and I set my timer, and it beeps off at 2 hours, and I can celebrate. And I say, all right, if my celebration is scrolling social media, I'm setting 15 minutes for that, and then I move on. In that way, it's almost like a um, cheese and mouse principle. So you're taking a bit of cheese as your break in between, but you're still getting your work done. Because if you don't time your way like that, you will find you're on social media for 15 minutes and it becomes 15 hours and the day is done and you get nothing done. So that's one of the strategies I utilize in terms of motivating myself to be productive while working remotely.
All right. Question coming from the same person. What tool do you use to schedule social media posts?
Okay, primarily I use Hootsuite, so that's very good because even with a free account, I think you're able to schedule across 3 platforms. So you can easily set up on Hootsuite and you can post across Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, if I'm not mistaken. Additionally, for those of you who use MailChimp, when you send out a campaign, you can also set it up so that the campaign is posted to your social media feed as well.
Social media, yes. So I think that's an awesome tool.
So today when I sent out this email about going live, for example, I just set it so that there would be a little image that would pop up on Facebook and Instagram, etc., and say live now, managing your business remotely.
Right. Let me ask a question. I think that was it. There's also another thing. Always Confident says, Tonaika says, Google Calendar is also good. Also, you can use Trello. Trello is fun and it keeps you organized as well. My question, Shanoy, is, we have all these different social media platforms. You're talking about LinkedIn, Pinterest, YouTube. How would you advise someone to organize their content differently for each of those platforms?
Okay, well, you're talking my language. As a communications practitioner,
I
always say one of the things I've spoken about a lot, guys. I blog at shanoycoombs.com as well, so you can check that out because I talk about lots of communication stuff there. And I will never understate the importance of knowing your audience. Who are you communicating to, and why are you using specific platforms? So if it is that your audience is on Pinterest, there is a reason why they are there. They're looking for creative content. They're looking for things that they can save for a later time. And they're looking for things in different categories, right? So knowing your audience is a key step in terms of how to create content for the different platforms. And as I had mentioned earlier, sometimes you may find that people think they need to be on all platforms when they actually don't. Because if it is, as I said, and it's a process and an exercise that you go through, like, who is my ideal audience? And it's not just like, oh yeah, I'm going to sell to anybody who wants communication services. No, as I mentioned, I niche in development communications. I know specifically most of my client base are actually members of international organizations who require someone with a development background and a communications background. and has worked in that space before. However, I have attracted clients who are in the corporate space as well, which is something I was trained to do. But at the end of the day, who is your ideal client? And so the more you know who your ideal clients are, then you will know what it is that you need to be creating the content for and what platforms it is that you need to be creating them for. Again, if it is that you feel for whatever reason you need to be across all platforms, you also have to think about the platforms themselves and how they function or what it is that they support. So Instagram is a very visual platform, for example. So you know, of course, you can't be making things too texty. Something I hate seeing on Instagram is somebody putting up a slide or a sheet or something, and you can read nothing on it. You can read nothing at all on it. If you have things that you need to put on an Instagram post and you think it's of value and it's very texty, I would say use up your slide, break it down, think of yourself doing a PowerPoint presentation and all of those bullets. Bullet one goes on slide one, bullet two go on slide two, etc. Don't try to cram all of your points on one slide and put it up. If it's not visually appealing, if people can't read it, it makes no difference. Twitter as well.
Use Instagram as the teaser.
Instagram as your teaser. And I want to say something as well, that bio section, because recently I posted something and said link in bio. And someone said to me they didn't see anything. And it's interesting because you assume that people know where your bio section is.
Oh my God, I do that all the time.
So it doesn't hurt to just screenshot it, point an arrow directly and say, when I say link in bio, this is what I'm talking about. Because sometimes it becomes so easy, you do things, it's second nature to you, and you think everyone is familiar and everyone knows how to do it, but there are several people who don't. And so in terms of looking at your platforms as well, it is thinking about where's your major information source. I use my blog to talk a lot about greater issues. I write more texty stuff there. But if I want to give people a quick summary, I'm going to do a YouTube video. And then from that YouTube video, I can post a 1 minute clip on Instagram, or I can post a longer part of it as a IGTV feature and say to watch, to view the full feature, go there. So for me, it's important to send traffic to my blog because it's more in line with what I do as a professional mostly. So most of my other sources will send people there. So at the end of the day, it's what's your end game. For Kumias, it's that you probably want people to go to your website and buy stuff, or you want to send people to your retail outlets. For someone else, it may be that you want someone to set up a schedule with you, or you want them to populate your calendar for consultation purposes. So it's really about what is your key service offering and using those different platforms to drive people to them. Again, don't kill people to death with text on platforms that are not text friendly.
Yes. All right. We're winding down now with time, but I want to get one last.
Okay, so she wants to get one last question in. Okay, and while
minute.
Yeah.
Okay, we actually have 1 minute 56, 54 counting down. So we don't have time to take that question, bare basics, but essentially, yes, sponsored ads can help. As Shanoy says, it depends on if your target market is right in front of you, if they're going to be seeing your ad. Then it does help, and it also brings awareness to your brand. It brings awareness. So like she said earlier, you have to try to be clear with your message on all platforms, in your bio, whatever flyers and so forth. So we only have 1 minute and 23 seconds remaining. Shanoy, I want to use this minute to say thank you. I want to encourage you guys to follow her. We did put the caption up earlier. This will be posted in my IGTV, not on my Instagram live stories. So it's up forever. You guys can go and watch it. You won't be able to see the comments and so forth. Also, I do have my mentorship program running right now. The link is in my bio. Like Shanoy said, I can't show you the arrow, but if you click the link, it's the first option. Sign up for my mentorship program. It's group mentorship, and the aim of it is to help you to start your business. And by the way, guys, I am not perfect. You know, I launched this whole thing on this Kumea Kumia's page, and I'm actually going to have to take it off and try and revamp this whole thing into something new and put it somewhere else so we don't confuse the two. But we're not perfect. We're all learning together. And that's why I theme this whole series advancing on the other side of COVID-19.
All right. Thank you so much, Kumia. And so for those of you who have been following along, that has been a session with Kumia, who is an entrepreneur, and I've spoken at length about managing your business remotely. Again, I will repeat the key tips that I've highlighted during this session, which are your strategy, your systems that you have in place, your success indicators, your support system, and scheduling. So I will pop on at some other point as promised to talk a bit about communicating effectively while working remotely, because listen, communication is a key aspect of maintaining your connectivity with your customers. So for all of you who have tuned in, thank you so much for being here. If you aren't already following, please remember to hit the subscribe button, turn the notification on. If you found this discussion was of value to you, feel free to share it with anyone who may need to get this information. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to drop me a line, drop them in the comment sections, and I will be happy to respond. Now, this interview remains live on the channel, so you're free to watch it at any particular time and to get your friends along. So again, thank you so much for tuning in and have a great one. Okay, bye-bye.